It's been a while.
It has.
It has, such a long time. For us, not for everyone else out there, because it's only been a week.
A week for them, yeah.
But for us, it's been since, I believe I just looked this up, February.
Yep.
Since we last did one of these. But, I figured it's time to reconvene the group.
Yeah,
Get the crew back together.
All of our stuff in our lives have kind of calmed down a little bit.
A tiny bit.
I mean, not a lot, but a little bit.
So much so that we can do this.
Yes.
So hello, welcome back to a brand new installment of Jared Now Watch. I'm Jared. That's Al and Ladium. She's a doctor
Hi.
now.
I am a doctor now.
Doc Al.
I forgot we didn't, that's not a thing that people would know if they
Exactly.
listen to
It's
Sailor
been a
Moon.
long time.
Wow, yeah, I'm Dr. Al now.
Like if you don't listen to the other podcast, you would not know that.
Nope.
Or this is your first time joining us. Because that could be
In
a
which
thing.
case, hello.
And yeah, in that case, hello.
Good to have you.
This is a podcast where we watch shows week by week. We watch a single episode and then we talk about it. That is pretty much the gist of this show.
Yep.
Instead of doing for our other podcast, the Season Language Checkup OVA, which you can find at seasonlanguagecheckup.com, we, for certain things, we like to talk about everything at once. But for this, we spread it out and talk about everything as a whole, but with singular parts. That's basically it.
Yep.
Also, this podcast is now its own thing, which is a new thing for this season. Because last time it was in the Season Language Checkup OVA feed. Now it has its own brand new feed. It's its own thing. It spread its wings and flew.
I'm still mind blown that we have a season 2.
We do. Seasons. That's a thing.
Wow.
So, since we're back, we obviously we finished up with Sailor Moon Crystal, and now it's time to talk about a new show. Because
And it's something else that I had also never seen.
Exactly. Because the season 4 of Crystal is now those two movies. We can't necessarily talk about those quite yet, but we're moving on to a brand new thing that also is going to end with us waiting for another movie. That's just the way these things go. And
Oops.
and like you said, it's something else that you haven't watched.
Nope.
But knew
I have,
of.
Right, I had a passing knowledge of it. I knew that it existed and a general idea. And actually, one of the groups I have their songs.
You do.
But I've never actually watched the show. So when we were trying to figure out hey, what are we gonna do for Jared and Al Watch? I was like, so what about this? And you're like, yes, absolutely, yes, let's do this.
Because I've been trying to get you to watch it for a good little bit. Because
I thought it was huge. But it's not huge.
no, it's only 2 seasons.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
I thought it was a massive thing.
Because I've had you watch things here and there, and you've
Yeah.
oh, their designs are real cute, and oh,
They are.
this is interesting, and I was like, I could do something with this. So as you have seen from the title of this very episode, we are watching Love Live Sunshine,
We are.
the second series of the Love Live franchise.
Which I have not watched the first one, so
Which you really don't need to for this, because they are two separate things.
yeah, I mean that's fine. And anything that has been a reference to the first one you've told me about anyway, so I understand what's happening for the
Yeah.
most part.
I mean, for the most part, I can give you a rundown of what happens for the first season, very, very briefly. But the first season is girls from Tokyo getting together, forming their own school idol club. They become school idols. There's 9 of them. There's gonna be a lot of referencing between the two shows and a lot of repeated themes. But Sunshine will basically take those themes from the first season, use them, but they'll use them in different ways.
Okay.
So it's not a one-to-one recreation or just they're just doing the same thing over and over again. But basically, yeah, they make the school idol thing. They basically make this group because they want to save their school from getting shut down. And that's the big push for them to become the champions of Love Live, because Love Live is this big competition between a bunch
Their
of
school is gonna get shut down.
their school is going to get shut down.
How does that happen?
It's a thing. But basically, Love Live is this big competition between all of like the school idols from across Japan, and they all compete on different stages, and then eventually there's just a big finals, and then that's where you determine who wins Love Live and all that sort of stuff. And pretty much that's just the gist of the first season is the trials and tribulations of Muse and seeing them grow into becoming the champions of Love Live.
Okay.
And that brings us to Sunshine. So, as you've seen, this is set in a very small town compared
Yep.
to the original series, which is set in Tokyo.
Right.
So we're already getting a little bit of like, oh, well, it's a similar premise, but, you know, how is this going to work when it's a small town instead of like, oh, you have all these resources when you're in Tokyo? And another thing that they haven't really elaborated on quite yet, but they will pretty shortly, and this isn't like a spoiler or anything, but ever since the popularity of Muse, basically school idols have like exploded in popularity. So it's not like a thing where, oh, you know, if you're a school idol group, you get to basically you're guaranteed to go to Love Live. Like that's not the case anymore. Like they are everywhere now. And that's going to make the road to getting even just qualified for Love Live much, much, much more harder than it was for like the first series.
Well, and especially coming from a small town.
Yeah, exactly.
Trust me, I know that life.
Because it was very interesting when I was first watching this, because, you know, I had the knowledge of watching the first season, that, you know, they never really give a point of reference of like how much time has passed from the first series to this. So at first it kind of seems like it's like, oh, is this like the school idol thing fad like just pass on and like it's gone? But you eventually are like, no, it got just huge and like it's everywhere now.
So did they eventually like acknowledge how long it's been?
They don't.
Oh, huh.
At least that not that I like know of. I could be wrong on
Weird.
that, but as far as I can tell, like there's never been like an exact acknowledgement of like, oh, it's this many years or so on from the first Love Live show.
I would think that based on what I saw, it's relatively recent because knowing what I know about like idols, the fact that they had like their video on a jumbotron like that wouldn't happen like years down the road.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. It's just one of those things where like I was telling you, they don't bring in any of the characters from the first season or the first series into this, so like that point of reference makes it a lot harder to like figure out exactly where the time is between the two.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But anyways, we're here to talk about Sunshine.
We are.
Small towns, big dreams. That's what's happening here. Actually, like before we start, a side note about this: the town that Sunshine is based off of, I think, is based off of like an actual town. Let me see if I can find the name real quick. So it's set in a town called Uchira in Numazu in Shizuoka, which is in the eastern prefecture of Japan. And basically the town like where they based it off of has gone like full bore into the show because like obviously like it's brought in a lot of like tourists like as like an anime pilgrimage type of thing. And they're just like full on like, hey, yeah, we're going to totally embrace this.
I love that those are a thing.
Yeah. So like they've had the actual like Japanese voice actresses come and perform there and hold concerts. They just did a thing very recently where they held a Kickstarter to get like new manhole covers that are basically they have like all the characters from the show on them, and I think like you either scan them or something, and like they're actually like they'll tell you stuff about the town.
That's completely smart though.
Yeah, it is completely smart.
Like as somebody who has worked with a smallish town and was trying to get like funding for projects to like keep up the history of it and to educate people about the history, I would love something like that.
Yeah, it's real interesting just to see like how full bore they went into like, oh, you know, because they could have gone either like they could just like ignored it entirely, but there's like, oh, you know, obviously this is breaking in a lot more revenue than if this show had never existed. So why not fully just support it and go completely all in on it with it?
It reminds me of the time that I was driving through like Louisiana. I was pretty young, and we drove by this town, and like they had this giant banner. It was like the hometown of Britney Spears. I'm like, wow, okay. I mean, like, okay, yeah, use that to your advantage,
Yeah,
man.
exactly. Got to do something. But anyways, we're talking about the first episode today.
Yep.
Which is entitled "I Want to Shine."
I wonder why.
And with 2 exclamation points, so you know it's very enthusiastic.
Yeah, there's one thing that I can say about the main character so far, and that is she is very enthusiastic.
So basically, we start this episode with the end of the episode, weirdly enough, where Riko is walking into the classroom and Chica is like freaking out. And then basically we rewind back in time to where the actual episode kind of begins from there. And we get an introduction to Chica, who is the main character of the show. Like you said, she's very enthusiastic, a bit naive as well, but
Yeah.
also just like she wants to make her mark in her life. Like she wants to do something with it. She doesn't want to just be another.
She said she's tired of being normal.
Yeah, exactly. She doesn't want to just be another person out there. She wants to find something that will call to her and that she can actually do something with her life with. So she gets this plan, this idea when her and Yo are in Tokyo, and she sees a big jumbotron on I believe this is the UTX building, which is one of the high schools from the original series. And she sees like a big jumbotron advertising Love Live's like second winners, which we don't get to learn who they are because they're not relevant apparently. And this basically makes Chica like, oh, I'm gonna get all on board with School Idol. Like that's my new thing. And her plan is, why don't I make a School Idol club? Because that's a cool thing to do. Turns out it's a little bit harder than that.
Yeah.
A little bit.
I learned this from Doki Doki Literature Club.
that that's certainly a place to learn that from. So basically Chica is out trying to like recruit people into joining her club. She fails miserably.
Yeah, hopefully her club doesn't end like Doki Doki Literature Club.
I can guarantee it's not going to end like that.
Yeah, she is having a hard time though.
She is. So her and Yo are very defeated. They spot 2 students walking by, and that is Hanamura and Ruby. They're 2 first years, and they're like, "Oh, hey, why don't you join our club?" And they're like,
You're so cute.
"You're so cute."
Like it is mega girl crush. And then like Ruby like explodes.
That's Ruby.
Yeah, not like in an angry way, but she just like explodes.
She's very shy. She's a very shy gal, which I think the next episode goes into that a little bit more.
Yeah.
But yeah. And Hanamaru's got like this weird vocal tick, which she's embarrassed about because she's joining high school and she doesn't want to have her vocal tick happening and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I couldn't understand what she was saying with the vocal tick, but
She says Zura at the end of her sentences.
Zura?
Zura.
Does that mean something?
I think it means more in Japanese, I think. Like it's a thing for like a certain like dialect or something. In this, it doesn't really play off that way.
Yeah.
Which you're going to get a little bit with another character that we'll meet a little bit later on the series as well. That there will be things that will kind of not make sense, but it is what it is.
Well, and then like Lady Gundam Tanaka just like comes off the roof.
Yeah, so Yoshiko is just hanging out in a tree, and then she just falls out of the tree.
It's like trying not to say that she hurt herself, and I mean she straight up goes full Gundam Tanaka.
She introduces herself as her alter ego Yohane, the fallen demon, or excuse me, the fallen angel.
Fallen angel.
And she wants to make everyone her demons.
As you do.
As you do. the only problem is that Hanamura recognizes her. It's like, oh, I remember you from elementary school, and Yoshi's like, oh crap.
Rock, paper, scissors.
And she throws out like the weirdest scissors. I'm trying to make my hand do it. And it's like, oh, ow, why are you doing this?
Yeah, it's a weird like hand contortion.
So Yoshika runs away, and then Hanamura and Ruby run after her. And that's the last we see of them.
They're not recruited yet.
They're not recruited yet. Meanwhile, after that happens, Chika and Yo are just like, wow, that was weird. And then, oh, by the way, here comes the student council president, Daya. And she's like, oh, school idols. Also,
you don't have enough members.
Yeah. So she is the person that made me question how the DIA spell in Persona is pronounced.
Oh.
Yeah.
That makes sense, because you asked me a long time ago about that, and I didn't know
Yep.
the answer.
Yep. Now
Yeah.
you know the connection. It comes full circle. Just nearly 2 years later.
Yeah, because it's pronounced Dia in Persona.
But here her name is Daya.
Daya. Maybe it's like I was gonna say a pun, but it wouldn't work the same way in Japanese.
Shrug shoulders.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. Meh. I mean, the only reason that I'm going out the Dia is because of the movies and also how Lotus Juice pronounces it.
Right.
So
that's the
fart
thing.
noises.
That's the thing. So Daya is brings them into the student council president's office, and she gives Chika a rundown like, oh, you don't have enough members. You know, how are you going to make your own music? All that sort of stuff. School idols are trash. That ain't going to happen here. Your club's never going to get accepted. She's the Ice Queen. So Chika's real bummed because obviously that was a thing. And then Yo's like, oh yeah, by the way, Daya hates school idols. Whoops, should have told you that.
Which she hasn't actually signed on.
At this point, no.
No, it's just Chika.
It's just Chika because Yo's just like palling around because they're good buddies.
They're best friends, yeah.
So basically, after this is when Chika runs into Riko, who's just standing on like the pier, just chilling. And then all of a sudden, she starts taking her clothes off, and she has a bathing suit under, and Chika's like, "That's weird. Why would she be wanting to go swim in April? It's gonna be real cold." And then Riko starts to run to dive in. She goes like, "Oh, shit, I gotta go stop her because that's gonna make her freeze to death." Except they fall in the water.
Yep.
Splish splash, taking a bath.
Which I was questioning how her phone survived, and you said waterproof.
It's the only explanation.
Yeah, maybe she had like a waterproof OtterBox or something on it. Do they have OtterBox in Japan?
Yeah, maybe. You just never see like cases in anime, really.
Yeah.
So Chika and Riko get to talking, and Chika tells Riko about like her dream of wanting to become a school idol because it'll make her not normal and all that sort of stuff. She wants to be not normal, and she wants to be a monster. Roar, pew pew.
I love the roar pew pew part.
That is a thing that will come back later in the series.
It's funny though, because like I do that. And you know that because you talk to me every day. Like I will text you pew pew sometimes, and like I don't know. Maybe I also want to be an idol monster.
It's true. You're gonna dye your hair orange, get a big obsession with oranges, get a big old dog that's named after a mushroom.
I mean, I don't know. I got like the dark red going for me. I think if I went full like carrot ginger, I'd look really terrible.
Riko tells Chika about herself and how she's a piano player, and she's struggling trying to find music, so she wants to hear the ocean, the sound of the ocean. And also, she is a student from Otonokizaka, which is the high school from the original Love Live series.
And Chika's like, I go to school right over there.
Yep. Let me show you these school idols. They're pretty cool. So after that, this is basically we come back to the end of the beginning of the episode where you get to see Riko coming in. She's like, "Oh, hey, hello, I am the new student here. I'm joining your school." And of course, she's in Chika and Yo's class, so Chika's like, "Whoa!"
A miracle.
And then they go into a music video.
That was super funny because I was not expecting it. And I was like, what is happening right now?
That's just Love Live. They'll just randomly, spontaneously go into like video, like into just music sections at some points. That's just the way the show goes.
I mean, it makes sense because it's like an idol thing.
Yeah.
But I was just like, what is this? What's happening? And then I realized it's like a mental thing. I mean, that makes it sound like she's like a head case, but it's like a daydream. We'll put it that way.
So that happens. And then Chica's like, "Hey, why don't you become a school idol with me?" And Riko's like, "Nah, dog."
No. What?
And that's how we end the first episode.
Yep.
So this is gonna be a little bit different than the Sailor Moon episodes because we don't really have like trivia or anything. I think they might come up later as the series goes on, but I guess the only things we can really feature, like, here's the songs that are featured in this episode, because that's a thing for idol shows.
Yeah.
So we'll do that. The two songs that are featured in this week's episode are "Start Dash" by Muse, which is, you got to see some of that first series animation.
Yeah.
Thankfully, the CG in this is a little bit better. Like, the first series got really criticized because of their use of CG in the big music parts, and most notably, at least in my opinion, like, one of the big detriments of the CG was that, like, all the characters looked the same, and they just all looked lifeless when they went to CG parts. So, like, in Sunshine, at least, like, they actually make the characters emote a little bit better. Because it's been a few years since the first series, so that really helps, like, in terms of, like, not making that so just, like, disjointed when it switches back and forth between the hand animation and the CG. And it gets better, I think, in the second season as well, so it's not, like, super, super terrible in this, but it's still a thing. I know some people will be mad about it, and some people just be like, "Man, whatever." And then the other song we get is Kimita Yo Hand in Hand, which was by Chika, Yo, and Riko. The music video part.
You know, it's interesting that we are coming into another series that has like controversial CG, because
it's true, yeah.
Sailor Moon had the exact same thing, but Sailor Moon like lost the CG, and I felt like it looked worse.
Mm-hmm.
So
apparently, I think, like,
interesting contrast.
Yeah, like I guess, like, CG in general for idol shows is just a thing.
Yeah.
That they just use, that, like, a lot of the shows use. Like, I think I've heard, like, Idolmaster does the same thing, and some of, like, the other big idol shows as well. So it's just one of those things where, like, hey, we can cut costs by not having to hand animate all these dance sequences. So I think that's basically, like, the big proponent of, like, why CG is used throughout a lot of, like, the big idol shows, and it makes sense. Like,
yeah, it does.
Having to hand draw all of those dance sequences would be real hard, but I mean, at least in this, like, there's more of a balance between the two. In the first series, it was like probably like 75-25 in terms of, like, CG over hand animation for those sequences, so it gets a little bit more evened out here. But anyways, next episode will be entitled "Catch the Transfer Student." I wonder
what will happen.
Yeah, I wonder what's going to happen that time. So this being your first experience with Love Live, was there anything, like, surprised you or, like, caught you off guard, or was it basically kind of like what you were expecting in terms of what this show is, or?
No, it's kind of what I was expecting, but what's funny about it to me is it's kind of like this is gonna sound like a really weird comparison, but it's kind of like an idol RPG. Like, she's getting new party members.
I mean, yeah, you're not wrong.
So, I mean, like, you have to kind of, like, solve their issue, and like it's like Persona, but with idols. It's like if Rize had her own game.
You are not wrong in terms of like what you literally what you just said of like, oh, I gotta solve their problems to get them to join. Like
Yeah.
that's pretty much the gist of this first season is figuring out people's problems and then getting them to join.
See, it's idol persona.
Exactly, you're not wrong.
Or if we want to say idol persona, it's Tokyo Mirage Sessions.
Hey,
Hey, what a good game.
that's a great game. I
It
mean,
is.
that was the game that I said was basically Persona crossed with Love Live and crossed with Sailor Moon.
Yeah,
So
I buy that.
there you go.
Yeah, so I mean, like no real surprises there, but I mean, I'm into it so far.
I'm glad. I was worried because like there is potential for this not to be your thing.
There is potential, yeah.
Yeah, so
And I mean, we're not too far into it,
right.
but so far I'm on board. The art is gorgeous. Like I really, really like the art. It's super like colorful and shiny, and I like that.
I'm kind of surprised by that.
Really?
Yeah.
It's not as generic
I-
as some of them.
But I mean like this does have some same face syndrome.
It does.
So I figured like that would be like a sticking point for you, but like hey,
I mean, it'll probably get more annoying as it goes on and we
Right,
get more
yeah,
of them
yeah.
featured together.
yeah. That's definitely going to probably factor into that, but
But the colorization and everything is beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think that's my key thing here with when I say the art is that I like the colors.
Yeah.
So, because that was one thing that I did notice in the opening, I think, is that I can't tell some of them apart.
yeah, you'll get used to that as the time goes on cuz
I'm like, so who's this one? Well, and then it took me like a minute. I'm like, wait a minute. That's the student council lady. What is
Yep.
she doing there? But like, I didn't recognize her.
well, I mean you haven't really had like a lot of time with her compared to like Chica,
Well, she's
Yo
pretty
and
recognizable because she got the big mole.
yeah, but just saying like for like the other characters as well, like you haven't spent enough time with them to be like, "Oh, that's that person." Compared to like, oh, like considering a lot of the screen time has been spent up, following Chica and Yo and with the second episode with Rico as well.
Yeah, I have no idea who the random like scuba girl is. No idea who she is. I can't figure that out.
You'll learn that as the show goes on.
All right. And then I know that Chica has a sister, I think. She has a neat doggo.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm if people have listened to any of our podcasts, period, they know that I'm hot garbage with learning like character names. And so I'll eventually get to the point where like they'll have some kind of like character trait or physical trait that I can pick up, and that's what I'll start referring to them as.
It also helps that like a lot of them have different hair color.
Yeah.
So that's also a good way to determine who's who.
Yeah.
And then eventually you'll probably be able to group them by their year. So that'll help too. Because they're basically split up into there's 3 third years, 3 second years, 3 first years.
So okay, so I know Chica and Yo are 2nd, and so the new girl is too. R Rico. She's 2nd, right?
Yes.
And so Ruby is going to be first. The other girl with Ruby's probably 1st. And then the Gundam Tanaka is probably 1st.
Yes.
Because they went to school together.
Yes.
So that leaves Student Council and Scuba Girl. Is there somebody else?
Yes. You only saw them one time in the first episode. You didn't see them in the second. That was the girl in the helicopter.
Oh, right. The girl in the helicopter. I forgot that she existed.
Yeah, because she doesn't show up in the second episode, but she's going to become a prominent force. It's probably like in the next episode, maybe.
So did I categorize them correctly?
Yeah. That's the groupings. So see, you're already well on your way.
I can do it.
And then we'll be able to categorize by subunit,
Oh my God.
which mixes them all up.
Oh boy.
Which they don't get into like in the anime. That's just a thing for them to like sell more merchandise with.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I get that.
Also, one thing I wanted to ask you about before we wrap
Hmm.
up. You have mentioned to me before that you feel very weird about shows that are English dubbed, but they don't dub the music.
Yeah, sometimes. Um,
Which this is a
but
show specifically where I believe Funimation has a disclaimer, at least on the home video release, where they were basically like, "Hey, we literally could not do like dub the music." Like Atlantis, the group that, like the record label that is in charge of like all the Love Live music, was like, "No, you can't do that."
well, and I think in this instance it makes sense because you have what, 9 girls that you'd have to find like
Right.
English voice actors who could sing.
Yeah.
And we had this conversation when we started watching Caligula.
Well,
It
technically,
doesn't
you'd have to
seem.
find 11 because you need to find the for two for Saint Snow as well.
Oh, geez. Yeah, you're right. Um, so when we were watching Caligula, I was like, it seems like every Japanese voice actor knows how to sing.
Mm-hmm.
And you were saying that that's like a thing that they train in, but that's not something that all like U.S.
Right.
English voice actors do. And
Like it's very
like
rare.
it's very, very rare. Like I keep thinking about Pappenbrook's ridiculous attempt at singing, and poor boy. But it's just not as common here. So like I feel like it in this case it would be near impossible to find like 11 voice actors that they felt like were talented enough that could pull it off. And then you also have to retranslate the lyrics so that they like
Mm-hmm.
still flow. And that's so hard.
And combine that with like the first series as well. That's like 20. You'd have to find 23 different voice actresses.
Well, and how many songs are there per episode? Like it seems like there have been several songs already, and there's
It just depends
this
on the
was
episode. Like
first
usually,
episode.
yeah. I mean, you have the openings and endings, and then usually there's usually at least like at least one insert song. Sometimes there just isn't because of how the episode goes. But
Yeah.
yeah, like they feature like quite a few songs throughout like the entire series, so that'd
So
be
I
a
just feel
lot of
like
stuff to get down.
in this case it makes sense to
Hmm.
not do it. Um, like it'd be cool if it were dubbed
Yeah,
because it's a neat thing. But no, I like Japanese music. It's fine. I'm not like offended by it.
right.
Loki is,
Oh yeah, of
but
course.
I'm not.
And
Loki ran off as soon as they started singing.
it makes sense as well, just because like they've brought Aqua over to Anime Expo like last year and then this year, and
Mhm.
I doubt they would want competition with like, oh, here's the English voice actresses singing all these songs.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. It's just a complicated situation
Yeah,
with this kind of thing. So, like I'm not mad that it's not dubbed.
it's just one of those things that like if you don't know like the situation or why, it would be very confusing, but it's also just a very complicated situation on top of
Yeah.
that. So yeah, that's a thing with this show in
It,
particular.
I'm glad that they do subtitle the lyrics
Yeah,
though,
yeah,
because especially in the songs that I've seen so far, like a lot of them have some form of relevance to what's actually happening.
right, yeah.
And so like if they did not subtitle that and be like, well, this is a song. Cool. Thanks.
Alrighty, I think that's all we're gonna be able to talk about this episode because it's a long one.
Episode 1 in the can.
Episode 1 in the can. Next time, like I said, Catch the Transfer Student will be episode 2, and we'll talk about all that stuff. But for now, if you would like more from us, go to seasonanimecheckup.com or sac.cool, where you can find the first season of this show, where we talked all about Sailor Moon Crystal, all them episodes, and you can find other podcasts on there as well, like the Season Anime Checkup and Season Anime Checkup OVA, and columns and reviews as well. If you want more from Anladium, go to anladium.com. She's got columns and reviews, and you can follow us on Twitter, twitter.com/animecheckup. So next time, join us for more rumblings of school idols.